I made the Savannah Bananas in MLB The Show, and today my goal is to win them a World Series, but this is going to be a huge challenge because their starting roster is absolutely terrible. This will be one of the hardest rebuilds I've ever done because there is nothing in this farm system, and because we replaced the Miami Marlins, so we're in a division with the Phillies and the Braves. This will be a very quick first season because we're basically a washed up AAA team, but I'm very curious just how bad we are as we're down 1-0 to Pittsburgh and this cannot drop. It would be such a miracle for this team to win a single game, but Miguel Andujar just got our first hit, so I'm very curious if we can score a run. Unfortunately, it's gonna be tough as we're down to our last out of the inning and there is a pop-up. So just like we all expected, the very few fans in the stands for the first Bananas game could go home disappointed as our 68 overall ace gave up another run, but at least strikes out Reynolds. The more I watch this team, the more I realize we have nothing to trade, and because this will be a realistic rebuild, we're gonna have to rely on the waiver wire and the draft to get new talent. I was hopeful some players could impress me, but that has obviously not been the case, so I wouldn't be surprised if every player on this opening day roster is not there next season. But of course, right as I say that, there's runners at the corners and Jonathan Davis is able to score our first run in team history. It certainly was not pretty, but it got the job done, and now we have runners at the corners again as Andujar lifts this for a sac fly. Putting up 2 runs definitely makes this loss a bit better, but after a week, there's no surprise we're 2-7. So it's time for our first round of scouting, which is definitely gonna make or break this team, even though we're picking at 16 overall. Our goal has to be to scout as many good pitching prospects as possible, but also, as I always do in my videos, I'm picking one position player to scout every week, starting with Mario Manuel. No matter which position we choose to go with, it's gonna help us out because we're last in almost everything, but scouting 26 pitchers on the first week is definitely a great start. It would be awesome to start the rebuild with a quality center field prospect, and there are 4 guys who could be there at 16, but as always, there's a lot of pitching options that could fall to the middle of the first round. The Mets being worse than us is the most Mets thing ever, but we're on a huge losing streak, so that should not last long. Sure enough, at the end of June, we're in a huge hole, so just as we expected, this season is already lost because as you can see, we are not hitting for any power, and I think drafting a power hitter like Angel Montez could be a great way to solve that problem moving forward. If Montez falls, he's definitely our selection, but after that, I'm just gonna go for the best value I can, even if that means drafting a pitcher, because we're so bad that we need the best value possible, and overall, this is not a deep position player class. My favorite center fielder is off the board way faster than I expected, but Seattle's the only team standing in our way of Montez, and of course, there he goes. That is very unfortunate because I really like Montez, but at least we're still gonna get a pretty good value at number 16, going with Ernie Flynn, who is currently my favorite pitcher on the board. Now that we've picked a pretty good starting pitcher, I'm gonna go very position player heavy because there's a lot of guys we could target in the second and third rounds, and even though my number 1 option, Claude Knotts, is gone, I really like Marco Marrero as a contact-hitting second baseman, so I'm gonna take him. We definitely need some more pitchers, but just like the Discovery Scouts tend to do in MLB The Show, they uncovered a lot of gems, and because position players are more rare, I'm just gonna take the best player available. In round 3, we're drafting our 3rd position player in a row, but I'm gonna switch it up in round number 4 because I do not want to miss out on our 45th ranked prospect, Hayden Early. If that 3rd baseman was still on the board, he would have been my selection, but I'm happy taking another pitcher, and David Tan has a crazy potential range. You should absolutely be discovering, especially pitchers, because this has changed my drafting approach, and with our final selection, I am taking a flame-throwing reliever who is the number 1 ranked player on my board. I didn't even see that. We have only won 20 games at the break, and because our season's a wash, I'm looking for any players that we can trade, but everyone sucks, so the only move I can justify making is moving Carson Kelly to the Guardians in exchange for a bullpen arm. The first trade of the video is for Eli Morgan, who's 27 years old, but does have B potential. However, I thought he was the best bullpen arm on the team, but Mike Baumann just made an all-star game, and honestly, I never expected a year 1 player to have this good of a stat line, as out of all the National League relievers, he won the all-star popular vote. Having one good player this season is honestly a win, but now we get our first preview into the future looking at our draft class, and as you can see, we did not do half bad for the first year. I'm a little disappointed Ernie Flynn only has 87 potential, but his high overall and walks per 9 should get him to the majors soon, and after that, our Discovery Scouts deserve a huge shout out because finding quality pitchers late in the draft allowed us to triple down on some project but guaranteed high potential position players. Our second selection, Marco Marrero, is a potential with amazing contact, while Martin Ojeda and Milton McDowell are definitely project players, but at least for me, the highlight of this draft was getting back-to-back A potential pitchers starters in the 4th and 5th round before ending with a reliever who I think I'm gonna move to closer. We ended season 1 with only 30 wins, so even after we gut this roster, I feel like there's nowhere to go but up. But even then, it's gonna take some patience because we're obviously not in a position to go after the top free agents, so instead we're going after some 70 overall players who will not only help us out right now, but hopefully get even better later on. Then in stage number 3, there's a ton of players who did not get arbitration offers from their teams, so they're available for pretty cheap, and this is good because we need all the help we can get. After just one offseason, our roster is already looking infinitely better than it did just a few minutes ago, and while we gave out a couple big contracts, notably to Mike Soroka, we're still really not breaking the bank. It is opening day in season 2, and don't get me wrong, we are still the worst team in baseball, but I'm very much hoping that our new additions can help us win at least more than 30 games, as that was an absolute meatball which scores our first run of the year. Last season, we had a team of minor league rejects, but this year, we've definitely gone up a level with major league guys that nobody wanted. There's also some reclamation projects like Tyler O'Neill, who still has a lot of untapped potential, but unfortunately, he flies out to end the inning. Mike Soroka is another guy we're trying to get more out of, and the great thing about rebuilding is we can take chances on these players, and at most, we hopefully trade a couple of them for prospects. Nick Gordon already has an RBI in his debut, so why not add a second hit? And now, here's a player that I'm very surprised Baltimore let go in Ramon Urias, who had a very good year last season, and now he's off to a great start with the Bananas. That is a 2-run shot for our new third baseman, so he's clearly trying to build off a good 2024, where he had 66 RBIs and a 291 average. Beating Cincinnati would definitely be a step in the right direction, and here's our utility infielder Gavin Lux going the other way for a double. This man gets so much heat from Dodgers fans, but maybe he can turn things around in Savannah, as we're looking to score him to extend our lead with 2 outs, but unfortunately, it's not gonna happen. So far though, we've been very lucky Mike Soroka's had a good debut with the Bananas, because Elly De La Cruz just got runners at the corners, and Nick Gordon just tapped it over to the second baseman for the weirdest double play I've ever seen, as we're tied up once again, and Ramon Urias is looking for home run number 2, going deep to right center field, but unfortunately, it comes up short. Our offense did get off to a great start today, but the longer this game's gone on, we've made less contact, but here's a ball pulled into right field. That's gonna be another double. Gavin Lux against a lefty is not ideal, so instead, we're pinch hitting Nick Senzel. This is our chance to answer the Reds and retake the lead, as Senzel is gonna do exactly that with a beautiful missile off the bat. However, we're not done yet, as there's 1 out, and Ahmed Rosario also hits lefties well, but he whiffs, so Nick Gordon's our last chance to not strand Senzel, and thankfully he bloops this over Elly De La Cruz's head. Our new offense is certainly a lot more exciting than last season's, but unfortunately, this game's gonna come down to the wire after we gave up a home run, so I'm begging for our 70 overall closer to not blow this, as he just needs 1 more strike to win it. We live for close games on this channel, and this has certainly been one of them, as Willie Castro pops it up and Dom Smith rushes in to secure the Bananas an opening day win. Then to my surprise, we actually won that series along with the first game against the Guardians. So now against the Cubs, we're looking for another win, but unfortunately, we just left the bases down 1 and Chicago scored, which means we need to rally if we want to stay at 500. Dom Smith started the inning with a single, and now Tyler O'Neill is gonna help him out by launching an absolute moonshot into the parking lot at Wrigley Field. That is the first home run of the year for one of our biggest free agent signings, as he tied the game with 1 beautiful swing, and we're looking for more. However, there are 2 outs with a man on first, but Ahmed Rosario is not letting us give up, and it's very encouraging that Nick Gordon is the next man up because he's had a great season. He already has 2 hits on the game, make it number 3 as this one's gonna drop, but the runner halts at third. So just like last inning, the bases are loaded, but unfortunately, history repeats itself. The problem here is if the Cubs take us to extra innings, I don't trust our bullpen for a second, but right now it looks like we could be heading there as Tyler O'Neill grounds out. On a completely different note, I'm very glad that our away uniforms turned out good in game because I did not know how they were gonna look, especially because yellow can be a very hard color to pull off on a jersey, but I think we did it justice. I know it's still very early in the season, but losing this game would drop us to 3-5, which looks a lot worse than 4-4, but thankfully we strike first in extras with a sac fly. Now we just need our bullpen to hold on for another inning, but of course the Cubs get even on their first at bat, and now I am very nervous because we're facing Cody Bellinger. One bad pitch could get blasted to the parking lot, so we definitely need him to chase, and here's the low changeup, which thankfully he's gonna turn into a double play. This game continues into the 11th inning, where Ahmed Rosario is gonna chop this one up the middle, and usually this would be an automatic out, but he has the speed to stretch it. Runners at the corners with 0 outs is a great spot to be in, especially as Gordon does nothing, because a team like this needs as many chances as they can can get, and Brian De La Cruz delivers. We cannot afford to leave these other two runners on base, but unfortunately, Ramon Arias flies out to center, which means Dominic Smith is our last chance to extend the lead, and that was not good. We traded for Eli Morgan this offseason, and we need him to deliver, but unfortunately, our right fielder just did a full somersault, so just like in the 10th inning, one at bat was all they needed to tie it, and even though we put up a run in both innings, we're in danger of being walked off. The winning run is at third base, and that bunt is not going to get him home, so Morel is their last chance to end it, but we strike him out. There can't be a scrawny slugger video without extra innings, and I accidentally had my recording paused during this part, but we scored the go-ahead run on a wild pitch. The chaos continues as Lux draws a walk, so maybe we have a chance to score more than one run, but that's a great play from Dansby Swanson to get the final out. It is time for all the Chicago residents to go to bed, except that's not going to happen because deja vu, there is another RBI single, and it's become very clear to me that our bullpen is our team's biggest weakness because this one should have been over a long time ago. We did not score a run in the 13th inning, so now we're in more danger than ever of being walked off, and it would be very ironic if former Marlin Jake Berger was the one to do it, but he grounds out instead. All it would take to win it is one sacrifice fly, and Nick Gordon makes a great play, but unfortunately, the winning run is gonna get there in time, as that game just took all life out of me. On the bright side, I'm very excited to scout players for the #1 overall pick, and we need to nail it because we don't know if we're gonna have it ever again, but unfortunately, it looks like there's no generational prospects in this draft. I usually don't like taking pitchers super high in the draft just because the game produces so many, but as you can see, we might have to because any position player looks like a massive reach. We are in last place in our division, but in my opinion, only being tied for the worst record in the National League is a huge improvement, especially because we have a lot to look forward to with 7 top 100 prospects. We are deadlocked with the Padres nearing the end of our first month of season number 2, and unlike that game against the Cubs, I would really love to avoid extra innings if we can. We are on the road, so we're showing off our beautiful banana jerseys in sunny San Diego, but that's actually kind of embarrassing because just now I realized that this is a night game. We've already scored 8 runs, and I'm just asking for one more as Mejia goes the other way where the Padres are giving chase. Can this drop? Thankfully it does. It might not matter though because there's 2 gone in the 9th, and our last chance, MJ Melendez strikes out swinging. That is going to give the heart of the Padres order a chance to end this one in regulation, and after Arise grounds out, we walk Joey Gallo, so the winning run is officially on first base as Verdugo hits this one to our third baseman who cannot field it cleanly. Arias won a Gold Glove in 2022, so I really expected him to make that play as Cronenworth gives this one a ride, and unfortunately for us, it is not stopping. Cronenworth calls game with a 3-run shot. Bring out the fireworks because we just got embarrassed, and to be completely honest with you, I thought this one was gonna stop at the warning track. We're officially the worst team in the National League after the first month of the year, but honestly, it's not all bad because our offense looks a lot better, but on the pitching end of things, it's literally been hit or miss, while our bullpen has been absolute garbage. We're looking to get back on track against the Nationals, and we definitely need to because looking at the box score, they are no-hitting us. We've had some embarrassing losses, but suffering a no-hitter at home against a Rule 5 draft pitcher would take the cake, so I'm really hoping that our best player to this point in the year, Ramon Arias, can come up big as he drives this deep into center field to do exactly that. Even if we lose, that is a sigh of relief, but we're only down 1, so this is getting interesting because the tying and walk-off runs are on base. So far, the Tyler O'Neill reclamation project is not going great, but coming up big in this position would be a great way to get him back on track as he drives the game-tying RBI down the first baseline. That puts the game-winning run on base with only 1 out, but unfortunately a pop-up makes that a little more complicated, so we need Gavin Lux to come through, but unfortunately we pop up into shallow left center. Welcome back to extra innings, where of course the Nationals are gonna strike first with a double, and I'm still in disbelief because it really looked like we would finally get a walk-off win. Nick Gordon could be our final out, and the runner is literally at third base. All we have to do is score him, but there is a deep fly out to center field, and the Bananas suffer another painful loss. It doesn't take a genius to see that we still suck, but maybe a win against the Dodgers could get our season back on the right track as Nick Gordon's gonna clear the bases with a 3-run double. It is very nice to have a 2-run cushion, but make that 3. However, it's only the 4th inning against a very good Dodgers lineup, so it's way too early to take our foot off the gas as Arias grounds to second base, a clean play is made, and a jumping throw ends the inning. Now the Dodgers immediately score a run, so with 1 out and a runner on second, we would love to add another one. MJ Melendez going the other way, deep to left field where it's gonna be caught. By the way, for whatever reason, MJ Melendez was in free agency, and I don't know why the Royals moved on from an potential player, but but I will definitely take him, as we have scored another run against the Dodgers, and Dustin May clearly is not having a good game because he just gave up another one. We have a 4-run lead, but add 2 more, as the worst team in baseball just destroyed the Dodgers. We've already broke last year's win total, but as far as the number 1 overall pick goes, I have absolutely no idea who I'm even gonna take. I've narrowed it down to 2 options, the first being Jamie Mendoza, who's a starting pitcher with freaky walks per 9, but there's a good chance he's a bust because he opted out of his physical. The other option is third baseman Julio Cordero, who, as you can see, might be the best pure hitter in the entire class, but unfortunately he cannot field to save his life, so he's either going to be a first baseman or a DH. As you can tell, this is not a good draft to have the number 1 selection, so all we can do is take the safest, best player possible, and at least for me, because of the injury concerns, I have to go with Cordero. Defense isn't that important through simulation, but because we missed out on Jamie Mendoza and so many other arms, I'm gonna go pitcher in round 2, and thankfully for me, there's one guy left on my board in Victor Marin, who also has pretty good walks per 9. Our next selection is only 4 picks later, so I'm gonna double down on good players and take a contact hitting second baseman in Luis Cortez. Then in round 3, there's still plenty of position players on my board, so I'm gonna take the BPA in Phil Snow, and in the 4th round, we're taking yet another infielder in Randy Pear, and I'm glad I did because we ran out of position player options for round 5, so it's time to go back to starting pitcher, taking Ray Manzo in round 5, before ending our draft with a very high floor closer in Mauricio Rivera. No idea if he's gonna be good, but I trust our scouts, and even though that was one of the thinnest draft classes I've ever seen, I feel like we made the most out of the hand we were dealt and should be able to add some more prospects to an expanding farm system. At the All-Star break, we only have 1 player representing us yet again, but unlike last season, the player that got in for us didn't actually earn it. Every team is required to have 1 All-Star, and while Ramon Arias was also close, he did not make it, and aside from him, nobody else really had a shot. Regardless, I'm very pleased with how our offense has played so far this year, because halfway through the year, we're 13th for batting average, but we definitely need to work on converting more of those hits to runs. To no one's surprise, we're in dead last for team ERA, but even then, Jordan Lyles is not having a terrible season, so I'm going to take this opportunity to send him back to Kansas City for a bullpen arm. Even though the rest of our rotation is struggling, they're all improving, and it's also great to see that our first draft pick ever, Ernie Flynn, could be on a fast track to the majors. I want to continue looking forward to the future, and Samuel Basayo is on the block, and since the Orioles are making a playoff push, they're looking for a second or a third baseman, so I think this is the perfect time to sell on Gavin Lux, who we just signed, but he only has another year before he hits free agency, and I really think this move makes sense for both sides. Before that trade, we did not have a good catching prospect, so Basayo really helps us fill that hole. It kinda hurts to move on from Lux, especially so early, but remember he only had a year and a half before free agency, and we needed to sell on him while we still could. As you could probably tell by that 3-run shot, this season is off the rails, so honestly, it's pretty great that we could sell on a player who we just acquired for pretty much nothing in free agency. This game might not be over though, as we're trying to cut into Boston's 2-run lead, and here's Gavin Lux's replacement, Tyler Locklear, whose double gave the Bananas runners at 2 and 3, and now Senzel bloops this into right center field, where the Red Sox are giving chase, but they're not going to be able to get to it. That scores 1 run and puts the tying man at third base, but that's a great play at first. I am definitely frustrated because this would be a completely different game without that heads-up play, and it feels like in every single game we've jumped in this season, the Bananas have not been able to catch a break, as they were on the wrong side of another close one. At the beginning of August, we are 43 and 68, but the good part about being in this spot is that we can finally view our draft picks, and I'm definitely nervous because one bad draft could set back our rebuild, but it's not going to be this one. The number 1 overall pick is not even the player I'm most excited about from this haul, especially because he only has 89 potential, and I knew I needed to draft both of Victor Marin and Luis Cortez, and I'm so glad I did because they both come in at high 60 overall with 97 potential. Cortez was an even better draft pick than Cordero, and then we added 2 more infielders with Phil Snow and Randy Pear before closing the draft with Ray Manzo, who definitely needs time to develop, along with Mauricio Rivera, who is 74 overall. That is exactly what you like to see. I can definitely work with 83 potential when he's this good, and overall, I think this was even better than the first draft of the video. I am a little disappointed though, because the other player I wanted at number 1 overall, Jamie Mendoza, ended up being 91 potential with 71 overall and an 81 walks per 9, which is definitely better than what Cordero brings to the table. That was definitely not a good draft class to have the number 1 overall pick, but I still think we did a pretty good job. And now in this game against the Giants, we are trying to finally finally win an extra inning game. But of course, we could not score 2 runners on base, and what a play at third for a double play. Senzel's diving catch just saved the game. As we have another chance to take the lead and potentially win this game, O'Neal goes the other way, and this gets down. The man himself, Senzel, can drive in the go-ahead run, and this sacrifice fly is gonna do exactly that. So now we need our bullpen to hold on, which for this team is definitely easier said than done. We have blown every single extra innings lead we've held this season, but finally the pain is over. This one's going back deep to right center field, where we make the catch and finally win an extra inning game. Moving forward, there's only 5 games left in the regular season, but to my surprise, we might not finish last in our division. It is very fitting that we're in a very close game against the Washington Nationals, as we've tied the game with a single, but we missed an opportunity to score more runs. But have no fear, Dominic Smith is here. Get out the rye bread and the mustard, because our all-star selection is going yard. The first grand slam of the video could not have come at a better time, because we've blown this game wide open and we might not be done, as Ramon Arias is gonna double into left field. That brings Dom Smith right back up with a chance for another bomb, and he's a player that's really improved as a banana, and there's another well-hit foul ball. Are you kidding me? If he waited just a bit longer, those both could have been home runs, but at least there's only one out for Tyler O'Neill, who scores Arias from third. The bananas exploding all over the Nationals would be a very satisfying way to end this one, and with runners at the corners, here is Rule 5 draft pickup Tyler Locklear, who finds the gap in the infield for 1 run, but he could also get 1 more, as this is not fielded cleanly, and what a disaster from the Nats to allow a 2-run double. If this game has shown us anything, it's that we are no longer the worst team in our division, as Ahmed Rosario just scored the 4th run of the inning. But as long as this pitcher is still in the game, we might not be done, as Nick Gordon blasts this the other way, going all the way back to the wall and right off of it to score our 10th run of the game. That was an offensive breakthrough we have never seen from the bananas, and it came at the perfect time, because we have a chance for 69 wins, and there it is. That is a very nice win total, especially for our 2nd year in existence, and as you can see, career years from guys like Ramon Arias, Brian De La Cruz, and Dominic Smith really helped us improve. On the pitching side of things, there's still a lot of work to do, but I really like that all of our starters are continuously getting better, while our bullpen also really settled down, especially after the trade for Carlos Hernandez, who came to Savannah and revived his entire career. Definitely the surprise player of this season, though, was Jorge Gonzalez, who solidified himself as our closing pitcher after being signed this offseason. Now that we're building a pretty good foundation and have seen some improvement from this team, I'm going to make a couple big moves in free agency for not 1, but 2 impact bats who I really like. Lane Thomas is coming off of a bit of a down year, so he's not going to cost very much money, while Josh Naylor has all the attributes to be a very good hitter. Also, after a strong season, I'm offering Brian De La Cruz a 5-year extension, and anyone who has watched my Portland Pickles series knows exactly why I'm doing that. Unfortunately, the draft lottery was not good to us this season, but in this series, we've already drafted so well that I really don't think it matters. Our last draft class brought us 3 top 5 prospects, and at the start of season number 3, I just counted 13 guys in the top 100. Entering season 3, this could be the year that the bananas finally break through, as we spent a ton of capital improving our offense, but the same cannot really be said for the pitching, as we just gave up an RBI double. To have a chance at the playoffs, Mike Soroka needs to play like an ace, and in order to do that, he needs to shake off that first run, which he's able to do getting out of the inning. Ramon Arias was our best offensive player last season, so it is no surprise that he's the one who gets our first hit of the year, so maybe we use that to build a rally and tie the game back up, but unfortunately that's not going to happen. And now in the 3rd, Mike Soroka gets himself into more trouble. Apparently the Phillies made a blockbuster trade last season for superstar Nolan Jones, and here on opening day, he has already scored all 3 of the runs, at least until Francisco Mejia gives us a drive into right center. I definitely did not think he'd hit our first home run of the year, especially because his first year in Savannah was not very impressive, but maybe his 2nd year could be different, as Trey Turner bobbled it and recovered for an amazing play. This definitely has not been a good showing so far, as we only have 2 hits and trail by 3 runs, so obviously I really hope this is not a sign of things to come, as Rosario grounds to Turner, but I think he's gonna beat it out. Now more than ever, we need a rally, but of course, right on cue, Brian De La Cruz grounds into a double play, and now there's 2 outs for our new signing Josh Naylor, who turns on this cutter down low into the right center gap, and that is going to be able to score Nick Gordon for our 2nd run. It's only a 2-run game, but the Phillies fixed that real quick, and honestly, this was a brutal first team for us to go up against, but here's our lone all-star selection from last year, Dom Smith, who launches a ground rule double. Last inning, Josh Naylor came up big, but unfortunately, our other new signing could not do the same, so we're in danger of stranding Smith on second base, base, at least until Mejia launches his second home run of the game. This is the best possible start on offense for our catcher, and if the rest of our team could just get half the meatballs that he does, we'd be in a much better spot. But now that Philadelphia's in their bullpen, we might have a better chance. Brian De La Cruz mashes lefties, but unfortunately he popped up. But luckily Nick Gordon was able to step up, getting aboard, followed by Josh Naylor. So here's Ramon Urias with 2 runners on. That last pitch was straight down the middle, and now he whiffs at a slider. So since our bad luck has continued, I decided to pinch hit our secret weapon, Nick Senzel. He is the best power lefty hitter on the team, but unfortunately this is a deep fly out to center field and the inning is over. That was very anticlimactic, but the Phillies go scoreless, and now we have one more chance to score 2 runs. So we really need Lane Thomas to step up, and unfortunately that is not it. I'm definitely proud of this team for at least staying in it against a playoff foe, and while this loss is definitely discouraging, there is a lot of baseball left to play this season, so we have plenty of time to turn things around. I do want to bring up our first ever draft pick, Ernie Flynn, at some point this season, but right now I'm holding off for service time manipulation. But aside from him, we drafted everybody else looking for the highest potentials possible, so everyone else in our system is going to take a little bit longer to come up. We are in danger of being swept by the Cardinals in our second series of the year after only taking 1 game against the Phillies, and after the Cardinals scored another run, it looks like we're doomed to get off to a terrible start. Ramon Urias hit a double, but it's not going to matter as Tyler O'Neill grounds out, and it's fair to say this is not how I thought the season would begin, as we're 1-5 after 2 series. It is so funny that now that I don't have the number 1 pick, there's a ton of good position players at the top of the draft, and since we got screwed over by the lottery, we're picking at number 9. However, maybe things aren't all bad as we're looking to win a series on the road against the Mets, but of course Lindor is not going to make that easy for us, as there are now runners at the corners with 1 out. I'm glad that at least Alvarez did not get yard, but this might be even worse. Drew Gilbert just dropped the craziest bunt I've ever seen for a base hit. My ego can deal with an Alvarez bomb, but not whatever that was. So now the game is tied, and this rally will not stop, as we have given up 2 runs in about 3 batters, and thankfully get out the inning only down 1. The trumpets are blaring for Edwin Diaz, who now wants to close this out, so for our sake, I really hope that Grimace is not in the stands for this one, because if he is, we're not getting out alive. He definitely had an impact on that last flyout, and now Nick Gordon is facing a full count, but is thankfully able to hit this one back up the middle into the left center gap for a double. That puts the tying run in scoring position, and I'm definitely glad that Josh Naylor is at the plate with his 99 clutch. I want to see if his clutch can come in clutch, but that was a bad pitch to swing at, so now Ramon Urias could be our last out. Losing this game would mean we drop another series, but Urias is not going to let that happen, and so far he's the best banana in franchise history. There were 2 outs with the game on the line, but that man did not care. He blasted a missile right into the outfield, so now we just need Jeff McNeil to be as bad as he's been in real life, and that's too easy, as our breakout closer from last season sends us to extra innings. We lost the lead, but managed to tie it right back up, so now of course, like always, we're back in extras. Facing Edwin Diaz is not making this easy though, as we're down to our last strike, and he gets us with an embarrassing slider, so we're in danger of wasting Urias's heroics. A Lindor RBI got us into this mess, but we strike him out, so we just need to hold on against Alvarez, and there's another K. Jorge Gonzalez was a great free agent signing, as he is making this entire Mets lineup look completely ridiculous, and we're going to the 11th. Sugar is finally out of the game, and I'm glad I don't have to see another 102 fastball, and hopefully that can make all the difference with a runner on third, and Jeff McNeil literally just flopped on the ground. I'm definitely impressed with the way our offense has rallied back in this game, but we're gonna need one more stand from our bullpen, and here's TJ Antone trying to get the save. After throwing 3 balls in a row, he's faced with a full count. This one's gonna dribble through the infield, but thankfully the runner stays at third. All of this man's pitches move literally so much, and we have to be very careful as they're going for the sacrifice bunt. There it is, and it's gonna score the tying run. That was supposed to be out of the zone, but his pitches are so unpredictable, and now with 2 outs, I'm just trying to avoid the walk-off, as we really need Castro to chase, and he does exactly that. It might not matter in the whole scope of the rebuild, but I really want to win this game, because after losing our first couple series of the season, this would be a huge confidence boost, and there's a sacrifice fly. There's still only 1 out though for Lane Thomas, who has not done anything this season, and that's only going to continue. So even though he's 86 overall, I'm starting to wonder if this signing's going to work out. Tyler O'Neill's another player who has not had a good start to this year, but this one sounded very good off the bat, going into left center field where it's going to drop for an RBI double. That is going to give our bullpen a 2-run cushion, but with slugging catcher Francisco Alvarez up to the plate, we have to be careful, and even though he dribbles this up the middle, it's going to score a run. The winning run is officially at first base, so this is a very intense tense situation for Eli Morgan, who is now ahead in the count 1-2, and there's a swing and miss from Drew Gilbert as it took extras for the Bananas to finally win a series. Our offense deserves a lot of credit for keeping us in that one, but speaking of offense, Neville Scott could be a good first round pick, but of course I'm going to try to find a few more options, especially because Henry Jimenez looks like a pretty good player. We are off to a very rough start with a 13-21 record, and just from looking at the stats, I can tell that our offense, even with the new additions, has not been nearly as good as it was last year, and in the rotation, Zach Little and Eric Lauer have carried a pretty unimpressive group, and honestly at this point, I don't even want to look at our bullpen. I was hoping that our offense could carry us to the playoffs, but this season we've been pretty bad in nearly every element of the game, and now we're trying to avoid a sweep against the Dodgers. We are tied up at 6 in the 9th inning, and there's 2 outs with a runner on second, but there's a high fastball. That's going to set up a walk-off chance against a premier National League team, and here's Lane Thomas, who has struggled so far this season, but a line drive into left field is going to give him a walk-off home run. It feels so good to finally see the free agent signing do something, as for once in our life, we actually avoided extra innings. It is also worth noting that Francisco Mejia batted in the other 6 runs in that game, and he has really not slowed down ever since hitting those 2 home runs on opening day. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but we might lose a series to Oakland, as they're leading the last game by 1 run, at least until Melendez ties it up. Now the bases are loaded for Brian De La Cruz, who's a bit late and flies out, but thankfully it is far enough to score the go-ahead run, so at least we've taken advantage of having loaded bases, as Rosario definitely flew out to center field, with 2 guys rushing out to get it, but neither of them can. That scores another run. I am so relieved we did not lose that series, because it's bad enough we're already in last in our division, so since we're in a pretty desperate situation, I am bringing up 19-year-old starting pitcher Ernie Flynn. Our current 5th starter has been terrible this season, so I'm going to trade him to the Yankees for pretty much nothing, which officially opens up a spot for Flynn. However, his first start is against the Dodgers, and he actually beat them, so I'm really hoping that's a sign of great things to come. Checking in on scouting, we have a lot of infield prospects in our organization, so I'm really hoping someone like David Francisco can fall to the 9th pick, but obviously that's a long shot, so I've gathered information on a lot of players and even found a catcher that I'd really like to take. Ernie Flynn's second start was also very successful, as he only gave up 1 run, and bringing him up was definitely the right move, as we're in 4th for the East. After scouting him, David Francisco might be like mid-80s potential, so he's definitely a solid player, but maybe not someone I would want to take in the first round. Hopefully I scout one of these guys and he turns out to be decent, because looking at our top 20 in the organization, only 2 of those guys are outfielders. There is one prospect that I completely forgot about though, and with our bullpen struggles, I think it's time to pull the trigger, as Mauricio Rivera has dominated AAA, and even though we just drafted him, I'm bringing him up to the majors. Now we're starting to get into a groove with 4 wins in a row, and at the end of June, we are almost back up to 500. It's definitely took a while, but our offense is really starting to find its groove, and it's really fun to see, especially because we have 7 guys that have hit double-digit home runs, and unlike last year, we're actually an above-average power team. We are also up to 16th in team ERA, and looking at the stats on this, it is very easy to tell that Ernie Flynn has completely changed our rotation, and in the bullpen, while Carlos Hernandez and Gabe Spire have both struggled, our second rookie, Mauricio Rivera, is off to a great start. It's a little early to check out the trade block, but one guy who really catches my attention is Brendan Donovan, and in this deal, St. Louis is looking for a corner outfielder to help their playoff run, but I'm also going to send them 19-year-old pitching prospect Jose Samuel to get this deal done. Donovan's going to fit right in, not only at second base, but also at literally any position we want to put him at, but that's not even my last trade with the Cardinals, who are looking to move Zach Thompson, and of course, given our bullpen struggles, I'm very interested sending them a position of need in first base, along with former All-Star Mike Baumann, just to make this a little more realistic. For the second year in a row though, we did not have any All-Stars, except for Dominic Smith, who only got selected because we need an All-Star, but with how good we've played lately, I am not very concerned about that, because we're on pace to have our best season ever and maybe make the playoffs. I am very curious how the Brendan Donovan trade is going to impact our offense, because he's definitely one of the best bats we've ever acquired, and he can play all over the diamond, and right now, he's on pace to have the best season of his whole career. We're leading by 1 against the Tigers, and this is a great chance for Donovan, who has a chance to start a rally and potentially cushion our lead as he singles. That was a well-hit grounder right up the middle, but now Nick Gordon is not going to help us out, grounding into an inning-ending double play. Rookie closer Mauricio Rivera is trying to close it out, who already has 1 out and collects his second, so now the leadoff hitter is the only man in his way, but this is already an 0-2 count, count and just became a very easy win. Great job for the rookie to come in and earn a clutch save, as we completed a huge 3-game sweep against the Tigers and are currently sitting at 52-50, which puts us just on the outside of the playoff race. Now that we're a few seasons in, I'm showing a little bit less of the draft process, but I do want to show my results every single season, especially because this year we started off with a decent outfielder in Randolph Pena, and then with our 4th selection, we also grabbed another center fielder who only has 83 potential, but that's still decent. With our 2nd selection, we took a pitcher who's honestly kind of disappointing, and followed up with a catcher who has a great potential, but a very low overall and needs a lot of time. Honestly, the same goes for 3rd baseman Tim Gordon, and even though we closed out with a couple solid arms, this was not the best draft at all. It is definitely not like last draft, which has produced 3 top 5 prospects, but I'm definitely excited to add a quality outfielder to our organization because honestly, aside from this guy, we don't really have any. Making the wild card seems more and more possible as Brendan Donovan's gonna drive in the go-ahead run against San Diego as he continues to look like the best player on our team, and Brian De La Cruz hits this right at the shortstop, who is unable to field it cleanly, and the throw comes in not in time. That is gonna give us a 2-run lead in the 9th inning, where unfortunately Senzel is unable to score any more runs, so it's up to TJ Antone to get us the save, and thankfully for us, ever since we moved him to the closer role, he has really come back into his own. When we initially signed him to a 3-year deal, it did not seem like it was worth it, but thankfully his skill set works perfectly as a closer, and despite getting a late start, he's 4th in the league in saves. Just one more strike will secure him save number 33, but that is bobbled by our 2nd baseman. He cannot make the play, and it's gonna be a base hit. To be fair, he might have prevented a double by knocking it down, but it's not gonna matter because here's a fly out and the Bananas win another game. We are fighting for a wild card spot as we're in extras against the Phillies, and this is a very good test for us because if you remember, the Phillies beat us on opening day, but obviously we're a very different team now as we're in trouble, and of course in one blink of an eye, this game is over. Of course Nick Castellanos was the winning run, and Philly would go on to sweep us, so it's very clear we have a lot of work to do. Thankfully, we're still in the wild card, but we desperately need to snap our losing streak in this next series against the Guardians, and we have another tied 9th inning game where Nick Gordon pops out to the warning track. We are trying to avoid another walk-off against us, and luckily for us, our other trade acquisition, Zach Thompson, is dealing. Looking at the box score, we have only scored 1 run on 10 hits, and I'm definitely not going to be happy if we cannot win this one as Naylor goes yard to straightaway center against his former team. Finally, somebody showed off some power in this game, and Lane Thomas would also go yard to give us the win. However, the losing did not stop after that as we lost 11 out of our last 12, and we've fallen all the way to 66-70. This late season collapse seemed to come out of completely nowhere as we are not going to make the playoffs, except maybe I spoke too soon because our second half of the month was much better, and it is literally going to come down to the last game of the season. I don't think this has ever happened to me before on this channel, so obviously I need to play the full game out, and all I can think about right now is how much it would suck if a team that we had to climb to get here prevented us from making the playoffs for the first time. We have already made pretty good contact twice in a row, and now make that 3 as Lane Thomas is actually going to get this to drop for a double, so that puts a runner in scoring position for Nick Senzel, who unfortunately flies out. Now this is very tough because New York's offense immediately scored, and since they were able to do it with 3 singles, why not match their game as Dom Smith goes up the middle. Francisco Mejia has had a great season, so I just need one more good game from him, but unfortunately that's a flyout, so Nick Gordon's our last chance and grounds into an out. Lucky for us, New York does not score, so we're still only trailing by 1 run, but Brian De La Cruz looks at strike 3 while Ahmed Rosario is gonna pop up. Then unfortunately we gave up a solo shot, so suddenly this is a very bad situation as even our best player Lane Thomas is coming up with nothing, and it's even more frustrating looking at Sean Manaya's stats on the year because he has not been anything special. For whatever reason though, we cannot hit him, but maybe I spoke too soon. Senzel drifting foul. For just a split second, I thought we had cracked the code, but instead it's another scoreless inning, and even in the 5th inning, we are no closer to scoring, which is unbelievable. Unless the Giants lose a game, we are not going to make the playoffs, which would be crazy because we were like 5 or 6 games above 500 before a huge losing skid wiped us out. But maybe we're not done yet because the bases are loaded with 2 outs and Josh Naylor is going to drive in our first 2 runs finally. It is so relieving for this to be a 1-run game, but now we're looking for the lead, going deep to right field, and it's a fly out. I definitely thought Smith got more on that one, but it is okay because now the Mets are in their bullpen, which is a prime opportunity as Donovan gets this to drop. There is only 1 out with 2 guys aboard, but with 2 strikes, De La Cruz has to be careful, especially in a righty-on-righty matchup, and he draws the walk. A new pitcher is checked in to face Ahmed Rosario, who lines out, so now all the pressure is on Lane Thomas. We absolutely cannot leave the bases loaded, because with the way this game has gone, we might not get another opportunity. Come on, it is not going to drop. That is unfortunate, but Zach Thompson's dealing, so we definitely just got bailed out, especially because Josh Naylor, barely knower, is gonna launch this one into the right center gap. Now there are no excuses for not scoring the tying run as he advances to third base, and there are 2 outs for one of our best hitters, Francisco Mejia, who seems very due for a base hit. That was almost it. He was just a tad early on a meatball right down the middle, but now he's gonna get jammed inside, going the other way, and it bloops into left field. That was a very ugly way to tie this game, but I can't argue with results, as we have scored 3 unanswered runs to tie this game, and Brendan Donovan's looking to add 1 more, but it comes up short. So just like always, we could be seeing another high leverage game go to extra innings, but Luis Angel Acuna just reminded us that we are not done, as he is now the winning run at second base, and this is pulled down the right field line, going and drifting foul. We do not want to end our season on a walk-off loss, so we desperately need Thompson to get this final out, and that was very easy. That was very close, so we can't waste any time in extra innings. Lane Thomas going the other way. This was hit very well off the bat to right field and over the fence for a home run. That is the way to start off extra innings, and now it is all up to TJ Antone to close out this game and send us to the playoffs. Jordan Westburg has already homered once, so we have to be careful, because just one bad pitch over the middle, just like this one, could be disastrous, and thankfully it's only a grounder that we block. This is definitely a scary situation, but thankfully Jeff McNeil was the guy up to the plate, so by winning this game, I am pretty sure the Bananas have clinched the playoffs. Sure enough, it absolutely was, and funny enough, we are very familiar with our opponent, the St. Louis Cardinals, because we made 2 key trades with them that apparently left both of us in a pretty good situation. Lane Thomas was easily our best offensive player this year, leading us in pretty much every single major category, and even exploded onto the scene with a 911 OPS. Right behind him though was Josh Naylor, so it was definitely a great decision to sign both of those guys, while Ramon Arias had another excellent year at the plate, along with Brian De La Cruz, Dominic Smith, and Nick Gordon. This honestly wasn't the best season Brendan Donovan could have had, but I feel like his best is yet to come, especially leading a very good offense that was 3rd in hits and also 10th in runs. However, our turnaround was definitely led by our pitching rotation, and I can't even begin discussing this without saying just how important it was to call up 19-year-old rookie pitcher Ernie Flynn. In our bullpen, Brendan Beck and Zach Thompson ate a lot of innings, while another rookie, Mauricio Rivera, was a great relief option alongside Jorge Gonzalez, and you already know TJ Antone was an absolute monster. It is time for the playoffs, where we're off to a very bad start, as a grand slam off of Mike Soroka completely changed this entire game in one swing, and if we lose this playoff series, we're definitely gonna invest in a real ace, because it's very clear we need it, as we only have 1 hit on the game and there's a 2-run shot. Remember that we barely got to the playoffs, so it makes sense we're not good, as it is 13-0 in the 7th inning, so at least we're not gonna get shut out, but that's definitely one we need to forget. No matter who we play, we're definitely gonna be at a disadvantage, because we only came into this league like 3 years ago, but even despite that, I'm feeling a lot better about game number 2, because rookie sensation Ernie Flynn is now on the mound. However, that's not gonna matter if our offense does not come to play today, and thankfully Lane Thomas doubles, but of course there's still 2 outs, so we need to score him, and Tyler O'Neill comes up big with another one. It would be crazy if we could win this series despite losing game number 1 13-1, but right on cue, the Cardinals tie the game, and honestly looking at this offense from front to back, they are young and very electric, as guys like Lars Nootbaar and Nolan Gorman developed nicely, but they also made a huge trade for O'Neill Cruz, who's definitely been a problem so far. I cannot believe the Cardinals are only a wild card team, and if we have any chance to win this series, we need to beat them at their own game with consistent offense, because it's very clear that neither pitching staff is very good. Here's a great opportunity with 2 runners on and 2 outs to score some more runs, but unfortunately that's a flyout, so we really need Flynn to hold on against the heart of their order, and he's gonna do exactly that as each team continues to match their opponent's move. Brendan Donovan's playing against the team that traded him earlier in the year, but unfortunately he grounds into a double play, so our offense continues to not be clutch, so thankfully Flynn is saving them, and if we win this game, he is definitely getting a statue, because we've been as bad as we were in game number 1, as Gordon hits this one deep to center field, and it's caught at the wall. We really needed that one to go over the wall, as it's still tied up at 1 apiece, and now Ernie Flynn's up against the heart of their order, but just like he's done all game, he's remained calm and has been an absolute boss. strikes. O'Neal Cruz is definitely a little scary, but Flynn's already got him down to 2 strikes, and here's a chopper for a base hit. Thankfully though, Wilson Contreras is pretty old, and that was a nasty slider. So now we're in the 7th inning stretch where clearly nothing has changed. It's another pop-up. Unfortunately, Flynn got pulled from the game, and we immediately gave up a run. So suddenly things are looking very bad because we've only scored 2 runs in 2 games. That would be embarrassing because the Cardinals are not good at pitching, and it seems that all game long we swung the bat at the right time, but it's just not going anywhere. The Cardinals just hit another home run, so now we're just a few outs away from becoming the laughingstock of the entire league as Cruz made an amazing play. We are down to our final out of the game with nobody on, and of course, this is when we finally get something going. So it is do or die for our best player, Lane Thomas, as we just need one good pitch to hit, and that was it. So it is now a 2-2 count, and the curveball got him, and with that, the Bananas have been swept in their first playoff series ever. There is no question that I'm disappointed in the results of that series, but on the bright side, we honestly probably weren't even supposed to be there, especially because our core is still developing, and we have a lot of prospects waiting in the ranks. So the best we can do is go through another offseason as the Rangers win the World Series, and it might even be time to get aggressive, trading a few of our top prospects to get some guys who can contribute right now. We desperately need starting pitching, and I found a very good trade partner in the Seattle Mariners, who have Brian Wu as their 6th best pitcher, while they definitely need help at second base, where we have Ahmed Rosario sitting behind Brendan Donovan, so I'm gonna make this move in a second. However, I'm not done adding pitchers, going after Mackenzie Gore from the rebuilding Nationals, and the reason we're doing this is because it's only a 1-year rental, which is only gonna cost us 2 potential prospects. In these videos, I always try to make trades that I feel like I can justify for both sides, because as you know, it's a very cheesable system. And now in free agency, we're continuing our trend of an aggressive offseason, going after Jose Alvarado, Dustin May, Brendan Rodgers, along with Tyler Stevenson. We spent the first couple years of this rebuild strictly building a foundation along with a farm system, but now that we've made the playoffs, we decided to get very aggressive, and we've already done a ton, but I feel like there's one more move we need to make if we want to be World Series contenders. The Tigers are rebuilding, and they're looking to sell their best player, Riley Green, for prospects, and the emergence of Francisco Mejia and the signing of Tyler Stevenson has kind of blocked Samuel Basallo from playing time, but he's still only 22 years old and is quickly improving, so he's going to be the key return of this trade, along with recent draft pick Johnny Bradshaw, and finally MJ Melendez, who still has a ton of untapped potential. We definitely gave up a ton to make this move, but that's the strength of a good farm system, as we also have Tyler Stevenson as our backup catcher, along with Tyler O'Neill, Brendan Rodgers, and Nick Senzel on the bench. Then our pitching rotation is drastically better than it was last season, with 3 new starters, and our bullpen added Jose Alvarado. This team can win the World Series, and anything short of that will absolutely not be tolerated, as the season starts with a Riley Green double. So after 1 at bat, our offense looks better than it did in the playoffs, as we advanced Green to third base, where Josh Naylor is going to drive him in on a sacrifice fly. Dustin May is our new ace, and we're really needing him to get off to a great start, because we've seen exactly how an early slump can impact the rest of a player's season, and Ramon Arias is still kicking. So far, this opening day game looks like therapy for our playoff loss, but there's 2 aboard for Riley Green, who's going the other way, sending this into left field, and that one is gonna be gone for a 3-run home run. This is a great welcome party for Riley Green, and I'm definitely glad we made an aggressive move to go get him. My strategy in this rebuild was to add as many high potential cheap players as possible, and then right as we're about to compete, sell our farm system for great talent. We significantly upgraded a team that still made the wild card last season, so reasonably, we are the most hyped team in all of baseball right now, as we may be the favorites to win the pennant only 4 years after starting with a terrible roster. However, in the bottom of the 9th, opening day is not over because the Pirates actually pulled off a solid comeback, so we desperately need Jose Alvarado to pull it together, and thankfully, we're gonna catch the Pirates stealing. That means there's only 1 strike to go, and he rings up Brian Reynolds, as we almost blew a certain victory. That was a 4-hit, 3 RBI game from Riley Green, so I'm glad our bullpen did not waste it, and with how good our team is, I really don't know if we need to watch many of these games, as sure enough, we are 25-7 after the first month. Riley Green was a slam dunk acquisition, and we're also getting good seasons from pretty much everybody else, while everybody in our new pitching rotation, except for Mackenzie Gore, is off to a good start. Gore is on a hot streak though, so maybe he can turn things around with some more time. And speaking of turning things around, what on earth happened to TJ Antone? That is not good. Rivera and Gonzalez are also playing well, but Jose Alvarado so far has been pretty disappointing. But at least on the bright side, we're still in first in our division with 3 key players struggling. Unless something drastically changes, I think we've done our job here, so we're gonna sim to the All-Star break, where we are 73-24 and on pace to be the best team ever. This is no surprise as Riley Green is in the MVP conversation, while regulars like Brian De La Cruz and Ramon Arias are having great seasons, along with the guys we signed last year, Lane Thomas and Josh Naylor. Brendan Rodgers is also having a terrific year coming off the bench. And finally, we have a starting rotation that we can count on come October. Looking at our All-Stars though, Dustin May made the game, and it's definitely a relief that Jose Alvarado bounced back as he made the game along with Riley Green to close out our selections. This was a very successful season as we won 114 games, and as you can see, our offense had a ton to do with this as we had 7 players with OPSs above 800, while Riley Green hit 33 home runs with 102 RBIs, while this was also a career year for Brian De La Cruz, who's now up to A potential. Our pitching rotation was electric, led by the 3 guys we acquired this offseason, along with the first draft pick of the entire video, Ernie Flynn, and of course, Mike Soroka's still here too. We were first in hits, second in runs, and in third for team ERA, but even though I'm surprised Riley Green didn't make the top 3 for MVP, it's very cool to see Mackenzie Gore in second for Cy Young, while Green did take home the Hank Aaron Award. Now in the playoffs, we have a huge test against the Atlanta Braves, but after how last year went, I'm glad we're off to a great start, as we have surged ahead with 2 6-run innings, so obviously there was no need to jump into this one. The crazy thing is we just shut them out without our Cy Young finalist on the mound at all, but after Ronald Acuna Jr. hit a bomb, we are down 1-0, at least until Riley Green sends this into the seats. That is a quick answer for the Hank Aaron Award winner, and he's definitely taking out his anger for not being in the MVP race. Unlike last game, the Braves are challenging us, but maybe not for long, as Naylor, I barely know her, is going yard. We were down 1-0, but there's 2 bombs to put us out front, so now I'm begging for our bullpen to hold, and it's not looking good, but we still get out of it. And because they're leaving Spencer Strider in, why not take advantage? Unfortunately though, they must have heard me because they pulled him right after that single, but maybe we can still rally because our lineup usually hits pretty well against lefties, but unfortunately there's a double play. Now we need TJ Antone to come up big in the clutch, and luckily for us, he does, so we still have the lead, but with how inconsistent our closer Jose Alvarado has been, I want to score some more runs. Winning game number 2 would be such a big deal, as that was a very rare swing and miss from Riley Green, and now he's gonna pop up into center. So with 2 outs, it doesn't look like we're gonna be able to extend our lead as Naylor bloops this one into left field, and what a catch from Jared Kelenic. That might have prevented another run, but now we strike him out, and I'm not sure why Alvarado struggled this season after making the All-Star game, but right now he looks pretty good. And that was a very filthy second strike as he has a chance to win it, and the sinker is gonna freeze Harris. Game number 2 is officially ours, so now we're just 1 away from advancing. Of course, in true Bananas fashion, we're in extras, and since we're in the postseason, there is no extra runner, which will certainly make this a little more intense. I really want to take advantage of Aaron Bummer because he's already tired, but there's a flyout to end the inning, so now we need our bullpen to return the favor, because after last year's playoff run, earning a sweep against our division rival would be awesome. Apparently, Jared Kelenic is a triple shy of the cycle, and as a Mariners fan, that brings me absolute pain, but he did ground into a double play, so he might actually be helping us here, especially because now, after a walk, we have 2 guys on. Having Riley Green up is a nightmare for Atlanta, but after fouling off an absolute meatball, he looks at strike 3. It really looked like that would dip below the plate, and now there's an edge strike, so this one's gonna continue as we strike out Acuna. Unfortunately, Atlanta has not been able to touch Rivera. This man's slider is so nasty that he could get a married man to chase his ex, which makes it even more frustrating that our offense has just stopped functioning. I don't want to jinx anything, but things are looking good with 0 outs and runners on first and second, and if we just stay patient, we might be able to take advantage of Murphy's low velocity, and there it is, that is going to score the go-ahead run. We have finally broken through, and the bases are loaded for Gordon, who unfortunately grounds into a double play, but now we have a chance to close this out and secure the sweep. We already used Alvarez, so he's unavailable, which leaves Eli Morgan as our last option, and he just gave up a single to Harris. This could be bad as Kelenic's had a great day, so we really need to try to bait him into grounding into a double play, and there it is, the flip to second and then first is gonna secure us the sweep and send us to the NLCS. That was a huge nail biter, so now we're taking on the Dodgers, who we defeated in game 1 before we lost 20-4. What even happened? Ernie Flynn gave up 8 runs, and then our bullpen just imploded on itself, so I can't lie, that definitely makes me nervous as Ramon Arias nearly tied game 3, but of course JD Davis used his invisible trampoline, so we're down 1 with 2 outs, and thank God for Francisco Mejia batting in 2 runs. We need a huge game from Dustin May against his former squad, but Ohtani just went yard, so we are once again tied up in the 7th inning 2-2. Even as the #1 seed, we are in the gauntlet against 2 super teams. But the good news for us is that this pitcher does not want to throw a strike, and when he finally does, it gets obliterated. That gets 2 aboard for breakout star Brian De La Cruz. And with 2 outs, we definitely need to compromise, as that's smoke to the second baseman, who once again makes a great play. I gotta figure out who this guy is, because he's been a huge thorn in our side. It is Josh Rojas, of course a former Mariner. So we are in a high pressure situation with a runner at third and 2 outs, and we desperately need Brendan Rodgers to do what he does best, hitting lefties, and he goes the other way to bloop this in for the go-ahead run. We can breathe a lot easier now as we strike out Ohtani. So now we've got Jose Alvarado warming up in the pen, but maybe we will not need him. Riley Green obliterates this to right field, and it does stay fair. The Hank Aaron Award winner comes through once again, as the Bananas have taken the series lead. What an amazing game, and we also won a very close Game 4, so we have a chance to go to the World Series right here, and we get it done. I literally cannot believe who we're playing in the World Series, because not only is it my favorite team, but they also have one of the best players on the Miami Marlins, who we replaced for the Bananas. This is very unrealistic, because in this universe, the Mariners actually spent money in free agency, so I think just out of spite, I want to destroy them, and we are off to an excellent start, as we're leading by 2 runs in the 8th inning, and we would go on to win the first game. However, Game 2 is going very different, as we're trailing by 2 runs in the 7th inning, so even though they got here as a wild card team, Seattle deserves to be in the World Series. However, Josh Naylor just went yard, so with 0 outs, this one is certainly not over. Brian De La Cruz makes it back-to-back home runs. Are you kidding me? It was an 0-2 count, but Munoz left a fastball in the middle of the plate, and we've wasted a lot of those opportunities, but not this time. We suddenly have a chance to walk this one off, and we are getting a lot of good airtime against Munoz, so it makes a lot of sense. They wanted to switch to someone else, as there's another pop-up, so now we have another extra innings game, but this time as the home team, we should have the advantage. We already have 1 man aboard for Riley Green, and that should have been blasted to the parking lot, so there are 2 outs for Nick Gordon, who is not ready to let this inning die. That puts a runner in scoring position for Josh Naylor. This could be it, but unfortunately, it's too short. But once again, our bullpen holds up strong, so Seattle continues to not punish us for leaving runners on base, as now we have another one on first, and Ramon Arias puts 2 on. I am begging for Lane Thomas to finally end this, but the best he can do is advance runners to the corners. So the winning run is on third base for Mejia, but why not go even further than that with a no-doubter into center field? He tried to give that curveball the Hawk Tua, but we read it all the way and sent it to the frickin' moon for a massive comeback walk-off win. It does not get better than that. As a lifelong fan, I'm pretty used to that happening to Seattle, and after that win, I am pretty sure that we broke them, so we have a chance for a sweep, as their ace Sandy Alcantara is on the mound, but apparently it does not matter, because within the first 2 at-bats, we have already scored a run. To my surprise though, Seattle did not give in and tied the game, so they clearly do not want to get swept in the World Series, as we hit into a double play. That is very unfortunate, as there's a runner at third, and thankfully Naylor is able to sneak this one through to score. It really feels like we have the upper hand, as Brendan Donovan goes the other way. Will it stay fair? It does not, and that's definitely a big missed opportunity. However, Riley Green is going to come right back with a solo shot of his own, so we're in a very good spot after scoring 3 more runs, and now Dom Smith is going to put the game on ice with a 3-run bomb. I gotta give a lot of credit to the Mariners for fighting as long as they could, but in the end, we were too much for them, as we are just 1 out away from winning the World Series in 4 seasons, as there's a pop-up into center field, and the Savannah Bananas have done it. This was a very fun rebuild challenge, and I'd love to do many more like them, so drop some ideas down in the comments below, and as always, thank you for making it to the end of this one. If you did enjoy this video and haven't done so already, drop a like and subscribe, and in the meantime, if you want to see more of my content, click right here to see more.